I like it. Opportunity in the murkiness. David, it's a good segue to you and the IAB, who we often lean on to help clean up some of the murkiness. What standards or collaborations are currently underway, and are some more effective than others in helping, bring together the fragmented CTV ecosystem?
Yeah, I think one of the, at the risk of stating the obvious, one of the challenges that we have is there's folks that look out for their own best interest, unique proprietary advantage, something that they could bring to the market that no one else can. And at a trade association, we have industry standards that if we were all to adopt them, what a wonderful world it would be. And in the hierarchy of everything that everyone needs to get done, standard adoption is probably not at the top of the list. So I mean, Open Measurement SDK is a good example of that. It's an IAB Tech Lab standard that's been out in the market for some time. Last year, added some TV OEMs. We represent about 40% of the market. If we were to adopt that, we would solve many of the challenges that we have around viewability and measurement. Another one that's more recent is something called ACIF, ACIF. I'm not sure if everyone's familiar with that. Ad Creative ID Framework. So Ad ID, as we currently know, exists in the US. There are Ad IDs that exist outside of the US and other parts of the world, but it doesn't get adopted by all agencies and all brands. It would help tremendously with frequency capping. It would help tremendously with measurement, but at the moment, it's very low adoption. So our job at the trade association is to try to educate as much as possible. What can you do if you're able to, adopt these different standards? So that's what we're continuing to do.
And Bill, from your perspective at Gracenote, I mean, applying these types of measurement, helping people understand the reach and frequency of their campaigns, can you share a little bit about what you're seeing and what Gracenote is helping, helping us do?
Yeah, I think from our point of view, we hear I'll keep going with the murkiness terminology. I think that works. So we try to add clarity around that in terms of what content is ads are showing against. So we have a series of IDs. We power a lot of a great deal of content on through the CTV ecosystem. So for a given piece of professional produced content, we know a lot about it. Our ID can help unlock things like the genre, the cast, the crew, different brand safety, different elements of it. So we look to sort of help unlock and give some comfort around buyers of what they're buying and how, and then ultimately they can use that to measure back against how that performs and use that to inform future buys. So I think also it doesn't have to be RDB, can AID, and I think David's point too is standards are super important. We need rails that everyone can run on and like a common language that everyone can speak. So when they look at a taxonomy or they look at I guess a way to describe content, everyone has a common terminology, and that vocabulary helps scale a lot.
And John, with SIM, I know you've done a lot of great research in this space. Is there anything to share on, when more signals are available, more transparency is available, and performance, or things that you're hearing through your conversations and work in the industry?
Sure. I mean, I would echo almost everything that the rest of the panel has said, first of all, and I'd particularly echo what David has said. We have the solutions in place, I think, to radically improve the buying experience. The problem is adoption. It's very hard in a very fragmented marketplace to buy uniformly. So it's worth saying, and we should probably remember this, that 60% of viewing is still on good old-fashioned broadcast and cable channels. And when you take out the ad-free streaming inventory, it's a relatively small proportion of the total market that is available in streaming. So most advertisers, clearly, or larger advertisers, are buying across traditional television and streaming. The positive thing, I think, is that we've seen this wave of explosion of optionality and choice. So if you want to buy CTV, you have many, many different options. The bad news is, if you want to buy CTV, you have many, many different options, and navigating between them is complex, particularly if you want to understand the impact and effectiveness of a linear plus streaming buy. We are starting to do some work on incrementality, which is still a painful pressure point for lots of agencies when an advertiser comes to you and says, how much did my spend in this walled garden or that walled garden or that walled garden really deliver? It's kind of a tough question to answer for lots of agencies. I think we're getting there. We have the standards, the technologies, the measurement solutions in place. But I guess the industry is in the kind of spotty teenager stage of its development, and it has a lot of growing up to do to get to adulthood. Hopefully, we'll see those changes in the next 5 years.
So to sort of summarize the first portion here, right? There's murkiness. Some people are sharing more signals than others. There's not really any through commonality or IDs widely available today. Maybe some on larger platforms. But look, the lack of transparency and standardization creates a problem. Advertisers often only receive basic data about where their impressions are served, very high-level things such as app name, genre-level data. Would love to go deeper. Is that enough? How do we go deeper? It seems like a lot of the signals are there, and there may just be some hesitation in making them available or sharing it. Gene, we'll go back to you. From your perspective on the agency side, how important is show level or network transparency in driving investment in some of your purchase decisions?
Yeah, I mean, it's really important when we can get it. But I also think that there's been a lot of value in automation. And so even when we're not getting that level of transparency, we are getting ROI and we are seeing performance. So there's definitely a trade-off between that automation and how much transparency you're going to get. But when we can provide that or get that information from the partners, that's definitely the gold standard.
And Dave, from your conversations, what do you see or what do you hear from the sales side of the barriers? Are there barriers? Are they obfuscating things intentionally? What's the status there? And, how can you force them to?
It feels intentional to me. No, I mean, also someone who came from the TV side originally and is used to, as you were saying before, knowing exactly, not only knowing where you ended up, but intentionally placing units in a spot that you've intentionally planned to be there because of the audience, but also the contextual relevance and the quality of the content, et cetera. That it doesn't exist in streaming. We know broadly that Netflix has high quality content, but you don't know what you're airing in. There's a wide variety of content on any streamer, and that's problematic. And to your point, it's important to know which shows are driving the best performance. We can measure campaigns, we can measure the platform as a whole, but which shows at which times to which audiences are driving performance is incredibly important to know. It is the network's only going to, or the publisher's only going to be as accountable as we make them, and they're not going to give more information than they need to, and that's one that they haven't been willing to give so far.